Welcome back to Meet in the Middle with Sam Collins and Norman Pappous. Today we have Neal Dikeman, who's running for the U.S. Senate against incumbent Ted Cruz and Democratic challenger Beto O'Rourke. So this segment we have 10 questions. Norman's going to start.
Yeah, so usually we ask 10 questions, and the 10 questions are designed to let the viewers see where in the spectrum the candidate falls. However, with a Libertarian candidate, we want to give you a little bit extra time. So these 10 questions are going to be broken up over two segments, this 20-minute segment and the one following.
That's very sweet. We love it.
Always trying to do our part to help, make our democracy better. So we're going to ask you specific policy questions that you're going to likely vote on. And the first one I'm going to take is, does the Libertarian movement embrace a globalist agenda? Let me finish up. In other words, how does the Libertarian Party view the United Nations or any governmental organization that has not been elected by the people, such as The Hague and the International Criminal Court? How does the Libertarian Party view those? And would a Senator Dikeman allow the International Criminal Court to convict a soldier of war crimes?
So that's a great question. And actually, like a lot of issues for the Libertarian Party, we probably cut across party lines here. It's not going to be as simple an answer as a Republican or Democrat might give. The Libertarian Party, and there's certainly a wing of it that believes in a very limited, if no borders at all, but in general, we all believe in as free a flow of goods, as free a flow of services and people as possible. And however, there's a wing of the party and that understands full well that we're a sovereign nation and we're not really about giving our sovereign rights up to another country or another organization that we can't touch and control. Libertarians believe that the government works for us. I'm not sure I've given them the authority to go hand that authority to the International Court in The Hague, and I think there's probably very few libertarians who would be okay with that. So if you're going to try and describe this as a globalist agenda for a libertarian, you probably have to break it into pieces. We do believe, and I do at least, in multilateral institutions. I do believe in working with other countries. I don't think that the libertarian goals can be achieved without partnering with other nations. But that's a tool. That's not the theory. In theory, no, we're not okay.
Real quick, would
Yes.
Senator Dikeman be in favor of? Would Senator Dikeman favor unilateral treaties over multilateral treaties?
So you mean bilateral versus multilateral?
Right.
I understand the rationale for bilateral. Personally, I believe multilateral is a better framework for the U.S. to get the jobs done that we want to get done. The risks in multilateral is you actually need to engage and get the job done and make sure you aren't sending sovereignty overseas, so to speak, and that you're actually protecting your interests because there's compromise in those deals. I think it is dangerous to move to a bilateral world. I just don't think the world works that way.
Okay.
185 countries, if you try to do 185 bilateral deals, the permutations blow out. So from a practical matter, multilateral may be the framework. We just need to consider it in the context of both our belief in the free flow of trade, services, and people, as well as the sovereignty of our nation.
All right. Some believe that the Libertarian platform is anti-war under all circumstances. When should America go to war?
So the Libertarians have one of the founding principles, and I'm not truly the Libertarian philosopher. There are some guys in our party who are really, really good at this and can quote chapter and verse on the theory. But I'll try and do the best that I can. Libertarians, one of the core founding principles was this concept of the non-aggression principle, which basically in layman's terms boils down to don't hit first, right? Do not use force to go make other people do something that you want, whether that's military force, political force, etc. And you can see this motif running throughout how libertarians approach philosophy and parties. So when it comes to the military, same thing. We're basically a strong defense party as a general rule. We're also a non-interventionist party. We don't really believe in using force, but there's a lot of folks in the Libertarian Party that, like a lot of Texans and Americans, believe that a good defense, good fences make good neighbors, is a type of thing that helps keep us all safe. But that doesn't mean we want to have our soldiers and our treasure and our moral authority spent overseas in wars that aren't really needed.
Is it safe to say that the libertarian position is we would have gone to war in Afghanistan, we would not have gone to war in Iraq,
I'm not sure that we would have gone to war in Afghanistan.
even though they hit us first?
So just because you're hit doesn't mean that your right move is to hit them back that way, that time.
Well, after the coal, after the embassies in Ethiopia, and
walk with me here.
I mean, how many
we
times
did-
are they going to attack us before you punch back?
Let me ask you this. If in 2001, when Congress passed its declarations and we went to war, you told every member of Congress and the American public, do this and you're going to be there 17 years later with still your soldiers dying, your treasury bleeding, and it's going to cost you the amount of ungodly treasure that it did, and the war on terror is still not going to be over. How do you think they would have voted?
Okay. I understand that point, but you're looking backwards. So
I am
allow
looking backwards.
allow me to look backwards. So we get hit in Ethiopia, we get hit in Kenya, we get hit at the USS Cole, we get hit twice at the World Tower Centers, once under Clinton's watch, once under W's watch. And the U.S. Senate stands up and says, no, we think we might be there forever.
You asked a very
Let me
specific
finish.
question.
I know, so now I'm asking another one. Because, so now the U.S. Senate says, well, we don't see, like the Russians, when the British went to Afghanistan, they were there forever. Nothing happened.
2 British wars there.
2.
Yes.
The Russians were there forever. We got them out with
Really stupid
with
decision. Princess Bride, never get involved in a land war in Asia?
Right.
I mean, come
But
on.
what would
you see this in the movies. How can Congress hasn't seen the
If
Princess Bride?
would
Thought everybody had seen Princess
Dikeman
Bride.
would Senator Dikeman have really looked at the United States and said, I realize that we've gone through 2 attacks on our soil, an attack on the USS Cole, an attack in the embassies in Kenya, and an attack in the embassies in was it Ethiopia?
I would have asked a number of questions.
What would you have told the country in saying we're not going to go get bin Laden, who we know has done all this?
So standing up for yourself is very libertarian. Remember, we're pro-gun too. We're not pro-murder, but we are pro-gun.
Okay.
And strong defense is very libertarian. But you got to ask yourself, are you defending, or are you starting a war that you can't get out of and causing yourself and other people a heck of a lot of harm just because you were hit first? In practice, with Afghanistan, what it really boils down to is we never had a way to end what we started. We never had a plan. We went into it, and it's become another Vietnam. It just drains our time and treasure. What we're running in our military and foreign policy right now is basically, what would happen in the corporate world be scope creep. Every decade, there's a new enemy. And we don't get rid of the old enemy from an infrastructure and military spending and force perspective. We just add scope to deal with the next one. So now we're effectively running a bad variant of the domino theory from Truman and Eisenhower, and to all the way through the war on terror.
But with
and
respect
in the
in the domino theory, you didn't have war declared on you. That was the whole point of the domino theory. In this, in here, we had war declared on us.
I would argue, like most libertarians would, that Afghanistan, and the fight against Al Qaeda is a police action, not a war. We've turned it into a global war.
No. The government of Afghanistan declared war on us through its defense minister, Osama bin Laden. Who was the defense minister? People don't realize this. At the time 9/11 hit, he was the defense minister. He declared war against us. We didn't declare war against them.
And we've been in a state of war with North Korea for 50 years. Are you suggesting we send another fleet over and invade? No. And no. So look.
But North Korea is not blowing up the
question
Twin
is,
Towers.
how do you defend yourself?
Right.
That's a legit question that we needed to answer in 2001. The answer we gave by starting a multitude of foreign wars that were going to take decades to get out of was either a bad answer, or we had a bad strategy, or we've executed it awfully. But after 17 years, it is not acceptable to say we did this well, because we didn't. We're sitting here in 2018 and we still haven't finished the job. Whatever we thought the job was, it still isn't finished. So whatever we thought we were doing, it is a complete and utter waste of resources.
Waste of resources and lives.
Lives, money, moral authority. Everything.
That was possibly, looking back, of course, it's hindsight's 2020, but at the same time, if there would have been a voice
that
could have speak,
nobody stood up and said, "Great, we're going to defend ourselves." Full stop. 2, how do we best do that? right? Nobody had that debate because nobody had the political capital to do so.
Looking back, I understand your point, and I think I think you describe our situation currently very well, and our choices currently very well.
These guys were
but
playing
I would maintain,
checkers, and they needed to be playing chess.
I would maintain in 2001, if you didn't declare war on Afghanistan, you would have been removed from office by your constituents.
You know what? I don't worry about whether I'm going to be voted out the next time. My job is to do the job while I'm there. You put me in office to do a job, I will get the job done. I'm not a career politician. I'm not going to be. I do not believe there's a career ladder for politicians. If you're not happy with what I'm doing after a first term, vote me out. It's your vote. I'm not going to ask you to keep me in office if I'm not doing the job you think should be done.
Okay. Next two questions are get more to your economics background.
So military history was actually what I studied at A&M as well as economics. So this is...
We're in the lines, Sam.
In fact, one of my professors is one of the leading experts on asymmetric warfare, Brian Lynn, who's still up at A&M.
Okay. Is taxation theft?
I do not like this term.
Okay, that's fine. You've mentioned the debt, something Sam and I strongly agree with you on. How do you get, this great, and you mentioned it earlier, you cannot grow your way out of this debt. And people who tell us that
not when you're increasing the deficit every year.
I would maintain that even if you're increasing the deficit, we're past the point where you can grow your way out of this debt.
So that's not true, but it's okay.
So
we'll work through the math.
So what would
together.
Okay, deal. What would you say is the best way to address the debt? A combination of tax increases and budget cuts, or do you think you can get there just on budget cuts?
So. Neither, really.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the good news. The bad news is if we don't do anything now, and part of the reason I'm running now, if we wait another 6 years, another 10 years, the math gets ugly. There are not any easy solutions. So I think you're directionally right. You're just a few years ahead of your time. I'll give you a couple of facts. So number one, our deficit today, we borrow 20% of every dollar. Yeah, something on that order. Yeah, our deficit today is $600-700 billion. About the exact same size as our defense spending. About the exact same size as the current deficit between entitlement incomes and entitlement outflows. Yeah, same $600-ish billion, which is about the same size as all the rest of the federal government, all the stuff that we think about as federal government, and about the same size as the what we call kind of the mandatory stuff, the stuff that we said we can't touch. Yeah, which everything from pensions to civil service and some of that sort of stuff. And so when I sat and built this little infographic and started to work through where the money goes, which is one of the first things I did when I started to run for office, you realize the idea that we can go mess with the discretionary spending and fix this is freaking stupid. It's like they can't do math. Right? You'd have to shoot every single, shoot's not a fair word. You would have to shut down and stop the spending across the board on the whole government just to close the deficit. Not deal with the federal debt, just close the deficit. So how do we get there? Well, what happens is they do exactly what they do at my church. My church is awesome, by the way. It's Spring Branch Presbyterian Church in Houston. My grandfather was a charter member, and I'm the treasurer. So we go through this budget stuff every year, and just like every other church in America, and every city, and every state, and every company in America. And what happens is every team comes in and they say, I need 2 or 3% more. And they say, great. We look at where income comes in. Well, income comes in 1-2% less. Not a problem, guys. I need you to go down by 2% across the board. But then personnel says, well, I can't let anybody go, and I want to do cost of living. And our property says, well, hey, the light bill and insurance have gone up, so we got to make that bill. And so what's left, the core missions of the church, is where we take not a 4% hit or a 2% from last year hit. We take a 20% hit to close that gap. If you don't do across the board, if you create sacred cows and don't look at it holistically, you end up having to, an unsustainable amount that has to come out of the part of the government that you don't want it coming out of, or the part of the church that you don't want it coming out of. So the real answer is you got to figure out a way to do across the board, or you got to do basically zero-based budgeting and multi-year budgets. Yeah, zero-based budgeting. I don't take last year's and say go up or down. I take 0 for every category, and I ask that team, here's your scope, here's what you need. But like with defense, we don't do that because we've been running scope creep forever. So the Pentagon doesn't have an opportunity to do zero-based budgeting. They're not really in a position or permitted to. Yeah, then we say, well, we can't touch entitlements. We can't deal with them. They're the third rail of American politics. Great. If you can't touch entitlements, you are done. Your budget is already set. If defense and entitlements are there, your budget's set. So then we say, well, we can't just touch all the non-discretionary stuff. And frankly, there's some of this discretionary stuff that we can't get the votes if we don't not touch those. So we're down to what Senator Cruz did after we to do spending increases and massive tax cuts and balloon the hell out of our deficit. He says, oh, I'm really mad about this $15 billion right here. It's like, dude, that's like 0.1% of what matters. Yeah. Why are you doing that? So you can score some points and make up a fake vote and look like you're being a fiscal conservative. You are not. You're like my church. Once you've determined the personnel and the property budget, your budget's done. Right? Once we've defined all these things they don't want to touch, your budget's done. And that's why every year, in every category, for the last 6 years, since Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz got into office, every single budget category in the United States federal budget has gone up. Every single year. And the deficit has gone up with it.
Right.
And the
But
debt has
getting back to
ballooned.
it, does Senator Dikeman favor an increase in taxes?
So here's what we're going to do. Yeah, and I built a spreadsheet to run this. And then I took that spreadsheet and I called up the Congressional Budget Office and found the people at the office who write the reports analyzing Congress's plans. And I walked them through mine and I walked through theirs to vet that I'm not crackers. And I'm not crackers. It's budget math. I do budget math and have done for my whole career. Yeah, what we need to do at a high level to square this circle, we have to deal with the entitlement gap. Yeah, and it really doesn't matter whether it's taxes, benefits, expenditures, timing, returns. There's a whole bunch of levers, and this is stuff that PERC at Texas A&M has been writing on for years. The policy prescriptions are out there. Not all of them are going to be palatable to all sides, but the plans are there. We've got to close that gap within the next decade. Okay, has to be closed. All right. We can do it anywhere from privatizing, to which I would like to see happen, to a number of tweak, but it's got to be done. If you don't close that gap, we cannot solve our debt problem or our deficit problem ever. Your goose is cooked. Has to be done. We don't have to do it today, however. We have to do it within 5 to 10 years. Then, what we need to do is real simple, and I'll give you one more fact to lead into it. If the federal government in 2012, when my competitors got into office, had simply not increased spending, right now, we would not have a deficit. It would be 0. Our spending increase is also about the same $600 billion or so that we have as our current deficit. And we would have a much, much more manageable debt load.
Are you including
That's everything.
intergovernmental debt with that?
Look, this is everything. I don't care which little bucket they want to put it in. This is holistic
Well,
budgeting.
because when we talk about this, a lot of people have solutions until that you realize that they're forgetting all about the off-balance sheet problems.
Correct. No, I'm telling you, off-balance sheet is no longer off-balance sheet. It's all got to be in the budget process. Just same way I do with my church. We go through, there are items that come in and out of our funds because we're a nonprofit at church, so we do fund accounting.
So if you would keep the spending the same,
So
you would keep the revenues the same?
One more
Yeah.
thing. If you want to do this without spending, without tax increases, what we need to achieve is something on the order of closing that entitlement gap within the decade, and on the order of 1% less per year in spending for 5 years. And I got to tell you, if there's a department in the federal government where the manager shows up and says, I cannot survive on 1% less next year, they just need to be fired, they're number 2 promoted, and keep going until there's somebody with a brain in charge. Because every company and every manager and every church and every city in the country knows how to do that. That's not a big ask. And then you let the economic growth ride. If you do that plan, then we don't out-borrow economic growth over the next decade. Within 7 to 10 years, maybe a little earlier if you're more aggressive, we are in a position where we're throwing off enough net surplus to manage not only the federal debt, but all this massive entitlement liability that we've done. So I vet this with the CBO, and they're like, oh, their plan says just to keep our debt from not growing or let alone to get it down to the 40% level of GDP that it used to be, let alone dealing with the entitlements. Their plan says you basically need to slash spending right now on the order of like 10 or 20%. Yeah, I think that's a little rough to be able to get done through Congress or to be due to the American economy. Yeah, when I showed them my plan, their only response was, that's going to require a lot of long-term fiscal discipline by Congress, and the CBO doesn't believe Congress can get that done. Basically, they think they're going to cheat.
Yeah, but that's been the point of view on the CBO for the CBO since
exactly. The CBO are smart people. They're literally Congress's own accountants talk about this issue all the time. They publish great work on it, and you know who in Congress listens? Nobody.
Okay, Sam.
So how would the Libertarian movement manage the economic growth promised by free market principles, and where does the American worker and collective bargaining fit in?
So can you restate that question a little bit? 'Cause I'm not sure where you want me to take it.
Okay.
I've got a couple of things I could talk about there.
All right. Let's see. Let's talk about the American worker.
Okay.
How does the worker and collective bargaining fit into this plan? Because when we look at, I think sometime growth with companies, they hit the American workers first, and if increasing growth and increasing profit means squeezing the American worker, how do we protect the American worker?
So we need to go through kind of a little bit of root cause, and think through this, because this is a very, very, very important topic. And I think one of the things that I believe in, and a lot of libertarians will agree with, and frankly a lot of Americans will agree with, is so equal opportunity matters to us. Equal outcome, well, a lot of that's on you. You got to have some personal accountability if we're giving you some personal liberty. But what we think the federal government in particular has been doing for the last number of decades is codifying really bad policies that essentially codify income inequality. This is not okay. Things like our monetary policy and running low interest rates have basically been shoving profits into Wall Street. And that's come essentially at the detriment of the American worker. And we did that as part of our fix to the Great Recession, which was built on, among other things, a number of bad government policies around how we subsidized mortgage. So we were underpricing risk on a grand, massive scale across this country. But it's worse. Healthcare, a lot of our American workers have seen income increases. They just don't see them because they're buried in the healthcare benefits. Healthcare is we talk about it being a free market failure. It's not. We haven't ever been in a free market in healthcare. We are running a four-payer system today because four insurance companies in each state control the entire market. Medicare plus three others are 50 to 90% in every single state market share. And these guys are running off a 1940s bad corporate tax deal that allowed corporations to deduct the healthcare premiums, but would not allow you to deduct them yourself. And so an entire industry grew up of insurance companies to serve not you, but corporations. It's the only industry we have that works this way. And that industry, though, so when you call the insurance company and you wonder why they're giving you the runaround, it's because you're not their customer. Your employer is their customer, and they've got to deal with your employer based on a bad government subsidy or a badly designed government subsidy that allows the employer to rip out payment from your paycheck and hand to them, and then they tell you it's a good deal because it's tax beneficial. No, it's a bad tax deal. The only reason that deal is in there is because during World War II, the government wanted to put wage controls on workers. And large companies and unions said, hang on, not cool, we're not okay with that. Workers ought to get paid. The government said, well, it's going to be short term, but in the meantime, we're going to give you a little sop so you can out-recruit the small companies, which is still happening because of this really bad policy. We've still codified big companies over small companies, companies and insurance companies over the American worker. They said, we're going to take this new thing called health insurance, back when income tax rates were low and health insurance was fairly small. And we're going to let you deduct it, but the employee can't, right? So they got to buy it through you, and that'll give you an advantage. And then war ends, price control's gone, they forgot to unwind the deal because the insurance companies all liked it, and the companies all liked it because they were out competing the small companies with this program. And then it's your insurance companies say, oh, how am I going to compete then to win all these customers? Because if I can get that employer to sign over all their employees to me, I get their whole shebang in one go. So they said, we'll invent the private network. We will go sign up doctors and hospitals to work for us. And then we will charge that through to the insurance company and pull that straight out of the paycheck.
But getting off of healthcare, what about collective bargaining? That is a state issue everywhere you go. You know,
Yes.
you either have collective bargaining or right to work. Where does Libertarian and Senator Dikeman?
So I think at heart, libertarians are right to work people. We're not certainly against collective bargaining or unions, but we're certainly not in for using the government apparatus to enforce and ensure and require that happens.
Okay.
We believe in choice at every level.
Last question for this segment. How does the Libertarian Party view the protection of our natural resources? Now, before you answer,
How long do I have for this? I might need another segment.
you
wanna
have
come
about
back and
30
open up the
seconds.
ne-
Okay,
the
30,
we'll
we're not
come
doing
back.
environment in 30
All
seconds.
right. Okay, we're not going to do the environment in 30 seconds. Meet in the Middle Chronicles with Sam Collins and Norman Pappous is having a fabulous discussion with the Libertarian candidate for U.S. Senate from Texas, Neal Dikeman. Please stay tuned for our next segment where we're going to open with the environment. Thanks very much.
Fantastic.